What if the moment you stop eating is not the moment your body begins to shut down, but the moment it finally gets a chance to breathe? We are taught from a very young age that food is safety. Miss a meal, and something must be wrong. Feel hunger, and the body must be failing. But biology does not see the body the way modern habits do. Imagine an engine that never turns off, not because it is strong, but because it is never allowed to cool. Day after day, fuel keeps coming in. The system keeps running. And slowly, quietly, wear begins to build where no one is looking. The human body works in a similar way. Most damage does not come from dramatic collapse. It comes from systems that are never allowed to pause, never allowed to switch modes, never allowed to repair. This video is not about discipline. It is not about pushing limits. And it is not advice. It is about what researchers have observed when food disappears for long enough that the body has no choice but to change how it operates. Because when food stops coming in, the body does not panic. At least, not at first. It recalculates. Reframing fear. Biology versus habit. For most of human history, regular meals did not exist. Food was unpredictable. Scarcity was normal. And survival depended not on constant intake, but on flexibility. The body that required continuous feeding did not survive long enough to pass on its genes. What survived instead was a system designed to switch gears. So, when eating stops, the body does not immediately weaken. It reorganizes. In the early hours, nothing dramatic happens. Blood sugar stays stable. Cells keep receiving energy. Hormones continue their normal rhythm. From the outside, it looks like nothing has changed. But internally, a quiet decision has already been made. Early hunger. Why it feels scary. The first hunger most people feel is not a metabolic emergency. It is a neurological one. Your brain is reacting to interruption, to missing signals it expects at certain times of day. This discomfort can feel intense, but intensity does not equal harm. At this stage, the body is still running on stored energy from your last meals. Glucose is available. Glycogen in the liver is doing exactly what it was designed to do. From a biological perspective, this is not fasting yet. It is simply the end of digestion. But this is where fear usually enters the story, because the brain speaks loudly when habits are disrupted. And this is where most people assume something must be going wrong. It is not. Something else is beginning instead. The first biological shift. 12 to 24 hours. As the hours pass, something subtle begins to change. Insulin levels slowly fall, not as a sign of failure, but as a signal. Lower insulin tells the body that incoming energy from food can no longer be assumed. This single message shifts priorities across the entire system. The liver begins releasing stored glucose more carefully. Blood sugar is maintained within a narrow, safe range. Cells continue working. The brain remains alert. But behind the scenes, reserves are being measured. Between roughly 12 and 18 hours after the last meal, liver glycogen stores begin to drop. This is not a crisis. It is a checkpoint. The body now has to decide how it will fuel itself next. From an evolutionary standpoint, this moment is expected. It has happened countless times across human history. And the answer is already built in. Fat tissue, often misunderstood as passive storage, becomes metabolically active. Fatty acids are released into the bloodstream, and the liver begins converting some of them into ketones. These molecules are not waste. They are a deliberate alternative fuel designed for endurance rather than speed. But the transition is not instant. Why the brain struggles first. Around the 24-hour mark, many people report discomfort, headaches, irritability, mental fog, a sense that something feels off. This is often interpreted as danger. It is not. What is happening is a temporary mismatch between fuel availability and fuel preference. The brain has relied heavily on glucose for most of modern life. Ketones are available, but the brain has not fully adjusted to using them efficiently yet. This discomfort does not signal damage. It signals transition. And here is the paradox most people miss. While the brain complains, the rest of the body begins to stabilize. Retention peak, the core paradox. This is the moment that reframes everything. The sensations that feel like weakness are largely neurological. They come from habit, expectation, and fuel preference. Meanwhile, organs responsible for long-term survival are quietly switching to a steadier operating mode. Energy supply becomes more consistent. Insulin remains low. Fat becomes the primary fuel source. While the brain protests the change, the body adapts to it. This is why many people notice that once the initial discomfort passes, things do not continue to worsen. They level out. Not because the body is strong-willed, but because it is designed for this. 24 to 48 hours. From absence to activity. By the end of the first full day without food, the body has not shut down. It has restructured. Energy that would normally be spent on digestion is redirected elsewhere. Maintenance, repair, internal organization. One of the most important processes that increases during this period is autophagy. Autophagy is a regulated cellular recycling system. It identifies damaged or inefficient components inside cells and breaks them down so the materials can be reused. This is not destruction. It is quality control. Under constant feeding, autophagy runs quietly in the background. During extended fasting, its activity increases. Dysfunctional mitochondria, which produce excessive oxidative stress, are dismantled. Protein aggregates that interfere with cellular signaling are cleared. Cells do not become immortal. They become more efficient. At the same time, ketone levels rise and stabilize. Ketones cross the blood-brain barrier efficiently. They produce fewer reactive oxygen species than glucose. As a result, mental clarity often stabilizes rather than declines. Hunger, surprisingly, may soften rather than intensify. This is not willpower. It is chemistry. 48 hours, a different operating system. By the 48-hour mark, the body is no longer reacting to the absence of food. It is operating according to a different internal logic. Fat-based energy dominates. Blood glucose remains stable without external input. Insulin stays low. Growth hormone levels rise, helping preserve lean tissue and support repair. Inflammatory signaling throughout the body tends to decrease. Chronic low-grade inflammation thrives in constant energy surplus. Temporary scarcity interrupts that pattern. The immune system also begins to change quietly. Older, less efficient immune cells are more likely to be cleared through autophagy. This creates space for renewal once feeding resumes. This is not immune suppression. It is recalibration. The system becomes leaner, not stronger in a dramatic sense, more efficient. Approaching 72 hours. Stability, not drama. As fasting approaches 72 hours, the body settles into its most coordinated phase. Energy production is steady. Ketones remain elevated and stable. The brain operates with reduced oxidative stress. Cortisol often stabilizes rather than escalating. Hunger signaling is typically subdued. What remains is a state many describe as calm alertness. It is important to be clear about what this state is. It is not ideal. It is not meant to be permanent. It is a temporary survival configuration, and its value lies not in how long it is maintained, but in the body's ability to enter and exit it smoothly. Why this matters for modern health. Modern life rarely allows this kind of metabolic switching. Food is constant. Insulin remains elevated. Repair mechanisms stay suppressed. Over time, the problem is not overeating itself, but the loss of flexibility. When the body cannot shift between abundance and scarcity, regulation begins to erode. The result is not sudden illness. It is gradual loss of control. And for many people in the United States and Australia, that loss of control eventually hands decision-making over to the healthcare system. Medication schedules, dialysis appointments, lifestyle constrained by machines and protocols. This is the fear that lives beneath the surface. Not pain, not hunger, loss of autonomy. The exit. Why refeeding matters. Fasting cannot be understood in isolation. What happens when food returns matters just as much. When feeding resumes, insulin rises. Digestive enzymes are released. Cells shift from conservation to growth. Stem cells that remain quiet during fasting respond to nutrient signals. Glycogen stores are replenished. Protein synthesis resumes. When refeeding is gradual, the body integrates nutrients efficiently. When it is abrupt, stress can occur. This is why biology favors rhythm over extremes. Closing. The real insight. The 72-hour fasting response does not reveal a body in decline. It reveals a body in reorganization. Health is not about constant stimulation or constant restraint. It is about adaptability, the ability to switch modes, to rest when needed, to repair before damage accumulates. Understanding this does not tell you what to do. It gives you context, and context is what allows choice to replace fear.